So having an evergreen shrub in your landscape is one of the things we all kind of struggle with. What kind of plant do we want? What do we want it to do? What do we want it to look like? How do we want to prune it? That sort of thing. So for us, junipers, which is a very common plant you'll see in a lot of landscapes, is very durable, it's very flexible, it can be grown in a lot of situations. They come in low growing, mid-height, and then those tall columnar ones that you'll see in the landscapes. They have their disease and insects problems like any plant, but that's a common plant. Yews is another one that a lot of landscapes will have, and again, they're a little bit more fussy compared to junipers, but it's another plant that you can get very low growing yews, you can get very upright growing yews, and also mid-height ones. And then they all have their own pruning requirements and needs as far as how we're going to manage them in the landscape. So one of the other evergreens that do well in our landscapes are boxwoods. And we think of kind of the classic hedged boxwood. But there are a variety of plants out there that are upright and narrow, mid-height, kind of like these, that are more spreading. And then there are some new globe, much smaller, denser, compact boxwoods out there as well. Some things to think about boxwoods when we're caring for them and when we're selecting a planting site. We want a place that the soil has good drainage. So we don't want a heavy clay soil. We want something that the soils don't stay saturated for a long period of time, but they do drain off. Good fertile soil, so really like any plant that wants, most plants are going to want soils with good drainage and decent fertility. With these in particular, we want to keep them out of windy areas. So they can be full sun or shade. Typically you see them in shadier spots because we're mostly concerned with winter winds and even summer drying winds. And as most evergreens, you may need to add supplemental water to them throughout the winter months in particular, and if we have a droughty period. So that's something to help prevent that winter burn and some of that dieback that you may see in the winter, is that we're going to want to continue to water them periodically through the winter. And then as far as pruning these, some things to keep in mind. If with any evergreen, so yews are another one, if you do a lot of hedging, you end up with most of the leaves and dense growth on the outside of the plant, which shades the inner part of the plant, and so you end up with kind of a dead zone in the middle. And so we want to try to avoid that. So what we'll do is we'll go through and kind of systematically go through and take some of the bigger branches out, some of the bigger areas, maybe do some evening, but we're not going to do a lot of hedging on these. And again, if you choose to do that, if you want a real hedged plant, that's fine, but understand that over time, you're going to end up with just all your leaves, the green is going to be on the outside, and you're going to have, if anything happens to the plant, you'll end up with a hole in it that will take time to fill back in. So boxwoods are maybe a good choice. Take a look at them, make sure that when you pick a boxwood, you pick one that fits the size that you want ultimately. I can't make this become a tall upright one. It's always going to be lower growing and more spreading. So make sure you pick the right plant for the right place.